From Central Indiana's #1 news source, this is Fox 59 Tonight.
And good evening. Thanks for finding us here on the Fox 59 Now app and on YouTube. I'm Cameron Ridle. April is Math and Statistics Month. What does that mean? That means we got to talk about science, technology, engineering, and math. It's one of those things that me as a journalist, I'm like, that doesn't impact me, but actually it does. And of course, April means that we're also getting toward the end of the school year. That means summer is around the corner, and parents are going to be trying to figure out, what are we going to do with these kids who are going to be at home from the end of May into the beginning of August, or maybe a little bit shorter, depending on what school you go to. But nevertheless, that is a time of learning loss. And there are ways to keep your kids engaged so that, one, they are safe, but two, they're smarter and don't lose everything that you guys work so hard to do over the 180 days of the school year. To talk about why math is important, why it's often left out, and a location, a safe place for your kids to hang out this summer and learn something. The person with those details is in our studio. He is Dr. Patrick Jones. He's the CEO of Exponential Prime. Patrick, good evening. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks, Cameron. Glad to be here. Glad to talk about Exponential Prime and math.
Let's first talk about Exponential Prime. This is it's a learning opportunity that really, I know you're working year round, but you do a lot during the summer, especially to make sure that kids don't lose what they've learned at school all year long, specifically with math.
And I think particularly we don't think about it as kids losing or not losing. We think about it as kids actually developing further than they've ever been developed before. So our math is for mathematically gifted and mathematically interested students. We want students who love math to thrive even more at math. Our belief is that every kid should be in advanced mathematics. And if that is to be true, then they have to be challenged as a problem solver when they're young.
So science, technology, engineering, and math.
Yeah.
We all know that acronym, but you argue that the M, math, is usually left off. Why so?
Yeah, whenever you see a STEM competition, you're going to very rarely see math. In fact, folks don't even consider math STEM. So the M is rarely there, right? And I think that's because people view math as hard and they view the other aspects of STEM as accessible. They view robotics competitions and building things as accessible. I think, some of that is accessible. It's even more accessible with math. And so you'll see for you to accomplish those things, especially go to college and work in leadership in those things, you have to pass math classes. There are barriers and there are gateways to get into those professions. So math is an integral part of that work. You can't separate them. It's not separate from the STEM world. It's intricately intertwined.
Why do you think that math is always left out, or why do you feel that way?
I feel like because there's a fear around it for some people, and it's usually passed down from parents or teachers when they're in school. There could be a teacher that somebody has that really doesn't like math, and so they're in schools and they're like, well, I love teaching English or I love teaching this book, especially in elementary, and I may not feel very comfortable teaching fractions or multiplication. And that's kind of a human factor. So that's not a knock on teachers. What it really is, though, it speaks to our ability as humans to understand that we're all math people. We all enjoy math. We all use it. We all look at the world in probabilities and variables and try to understand how we're going to approach life based on the information that we have.
Now, before we started, I said I'm not a math
You sure
person.
did.
But as we talk, okay, I'm not a calculations person.
There we go.
I struggled in math in school. I do not retain numbers very well unless I associate it with something that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But as you explained, a person like me, if you're in logistics or even, I'm hitting all these buttons right now.
Yep.
You say this is all math.
It's all math. One of the biggest courses in math that you're going to see is geometry. And you can literally teach a geometry class with no numbers. It's measurement without the benefit of numbers, understanding the relationships between certain geometric principles, right? And so if that can also be math, then we can look at logistics as math. We can look at pathways as math. We can look at arrays and shapes as math. And so it doesn't always boil down to calculation. And I think we too often conflate mathematics and calculation when calculation is an aspect of math. It is not math itself.
So we're in a second. We'll talk about how this can be controversial because all of the topics that I've done on this show somehow, some way, unintentionally have become controversial. And I said, math. There's nothing controversial about math, but I think you might argue something different. But before we get in too deep, let's talk about what you have going on in summer and throughout the school year because you have relationships with a number of different schools
Yeah.
here in the Indianapolis area.
So the biggest thing I would say, we have our first summer camp coming up this year. So we
Okay.
have a math camp that's going to be June 2nd to June 5th. So it's just a 1 week camp. It's going to be absolutely amazing. Our theme is going to be aviation and robotics, and we are challenging kids with competition level math problems in grades 2 to 5, right? And we're going to use that time to really get kids access to high level math problems and get them access to how those problems present themselves in aviation and robotics. And they get to learn the history of aviation and robotics in form of people of color and other contributors through the sector. The other thing is we have a monthly math circle that meets. And this month, in May, it'll meet May 17th, and it's 2 hours. We're going to meet at Rooted School, Indianapolis from 9 to 11. And during that time, kids engage in high level math problems. They engage in competition level problems. The problems are sometimes connected to our own math competition that happens in February in partnership with the Indiana State Museum. And we're looking forward to that math circle that's coming up May 17th. If you go to our website, and go to the calendar page, all of our links and all of our work in terms of if you're going to sign up and engage with us will be on that page.
So there's your
Yep,
website there,
right
right
there. So
there.
if you scroll all the way to the bottom there, it'll get us to the latest the latest activities
So
that
that's
we
the
have
math
for
circle.
kids.
That's the one you're talking
Yep.
about there.
And I think the thing to really point out here is the work that I do with kids as far as getting them access to advanced mathematics is usually really expensive. Actually, it's become really privatized. A lot of this work that I do used to be in schools, and teachers in schools used to run it at a very high level. But now what you'll see is kids are going to Mathnasium, kids are going to Kumon, kids are going to all of these very privatized sessions to get this type of work. And the problem is it's extremely expensive. And so the kids in the communities I serve can't afford all that. So we offer it all for free.
For free.
The math circle will be free. The math competition is free if you register with your school. $5 if you register it with individually with your parent.
And then the dates on this is March. The one we're looking at says March 8th, but
so that the May 17th is our new date. That goes up on Monday for the registration. That's right. So yeah, we'll be there May 17th at Rooted School, Indianapolis from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. And that RSVP will be up on Monday morning for folks to register their children.
While it's free for parents, let me ask you this. Nothing that you do is free. The supplies and stuff that you're using and the space, I assume maybe you got a good relationship or something with somebody.
Yeah.
But all these things, somebody is paying for something somewhere.
Yeah. So Space, our partner is Rooted School, Indianapolis. 100%. They've been great partners for us. They've allowed us to host our math circle there, and they're partner with Eastern Star Church. So they've been really gracious to support us with Space. I would say our other benefactors have been Indie Black Professionals, run by Bumi Akintomide. And Indie Black Professionals has been really instrumental. I would say my mother has donated tons of money to this because she believes in what we are doing, because she did it for me and she wanted to make sure I had a great education. So I want to make sure I turn that around to other folks. And then my own paycheck, my day job. And so I donate a portion of my earnings to make sure that this floats. And we also have a great partnership with a foundation called the Karina Fund out of California. And they fund high-level math initiatives. And they believe that we are an initiative that can help them support their dreams, which is getting every kid access to advanced mathematics.
So do you need help? It sounds like you got a good squad
Always
behind
need
you.
help, Cameron. Nope, don't do that. Always need help. And so this is all of our programming is run through our 501c3. And with that, we can always use help and support. When we run our math competition costs about $10,000 to put on. We have over 50 kids from over 10 elementary schools come to our math competition. And in fact, we had kids from Cincinnati and St. Louis come this past year.
Okay.
So we always need help. We always need funds to make
Mm-hmm.
this work,
Mm-hmm.
because we want the kids to have the best opportunity. So when I'm talking aviation and robotics, I want to bring in actual like propelled aircraft that you can like we're going to have a paper airplane that you can add propellers to,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can navigate that paper airplane with an iPad. And we want to teach kids about lift and all of the things. We're not going to be like an aviation school, but we want kids to have access to the best things, and that costs money. So we welcome all financial partners to our work.
Well, I mean, don't I wouldn't say I would say that is the beginning. I mean, somebody's going to pick up that iPad, decide that maybe they want to go into aviation because now they understand how it works,
Absolutely.
or they want to be an engineer, a flight engineer, or something. So I mean, usually it I am a believer that you don't know about something until you see it. You can't see yourself doing something that you don't know
That's
exists.
absolutely true.
So I'm sure that is going to spark somebody
Yep.
into deciding, hold on, I kind of want to go down this path. They might not have it figured out, this summer,
And in
but
addition to that, in addition to the exposure, they're going to be a high level problem solver.
hmm
So that's our goal, right? The
hmm
exposure is a part of it. The thinker is our core mission, right? We want to build what we call a community of thinkers. And so when we expose kids to these things, we want to expose them in a way where they're not only using the exposure to motivate them, but they have the thinking and problem solving capacity to continue driving them towards their dream.
So when it comes to, you said a couple of things that I want to touch on.
Hmm.
Let's first talk about where I was going with the supplies, with the access to the things that you're talking about. These things are not available at every school. Schools that have something like a robotics program, they're blessed to have that.
Yeah.
And they spend money and whatnot and get donations to get this equipment and to build these things. Um, but that is something in that same community. I know where Rooted School is. I know it very well. I know
Yep.
the area. Um, there aren't too many opportunities in that area to learn anything remotely close to robotics. How, um, when I said that there's nothing controversial about math, how is that uh, what makes this necessary and makes it intentional for you to be in these particular spaces? Like, why you are?
Yeah. Well, so I moved to Indianapolis in 2007. And I was fortunate enough to work at Tinley Accelerated Schools for 10 years. And I felt like we did great things for kids there. But I'm originally from Los Angeles, California. So I'm from Compton, Los Angeles County. And I would say in Compton schools, they had their own challenges. We certainly had our own challenges. But I was grateful and blessed enough to have parents where my dad was a jet mechanic and my mom originally was an accountant. And so they thought the world of me and my brilliance and my genius. And I feel like it gave me enough power to go into school and do the things I needed to do to give me opportunities in the future. And that was like, challenge me with math problems all the time. They brought books home all the time. They put me in programs. They put me in computer aided drafting programs when I was in middle school and early high school. I was in computer programming early in high school. And so it was an opportunity to really stretch my mind and think. So when I got to college, I can achieve the things that I needed to achieve. And I feel like it is just an absolute blessing to be able to give the gift that my parents gave me, specifically that my mother, like I said, is still giving to other children. And I also see it as a way for children in poverty, children who are usually looked at as less than, to exercise their own freedom and knowing that if I know these things, I can make a way for myself, right? And so this is an opportunity to really stretch your mind and your thinking, so that way that pathway to college is a lot easier. The story that's not being told is kids go to college and say, I want to be doctors, I want to be engineers, and one of the classes you got to take to do that is calculus,
Mhm.
right? A lot of if you're not taking calculus by 12th grade year, and you want to be in the STEM world, you're probably in trouble.
Mhm.
And so But they're not telling us that even when you get to that college campus, the hardest math class there that you'll take probably your freshman year starts off with probably 50 to 100 kids. The next week, that class is split in half. The next week after that, that class is split in half until there are about 10 kids left in that class by the time you finish out the school year. And they all mostly have C's and B's, and almost nobody has an A. Nobody's having that conversation, that it is looked at as that much of a gateway for our children to accomplish the dreams that they want. There's nothing worse for me than me hearing a kid saying, I had to abandon my dream because I wasn't prepared. And so I'm not playing a role in that. I'm making my own way for our kids to make sure that they have what they need and that no math class is a barrier for them to continue to compete.
Well, it brings a smile to my face only because I was that person, but for me it was different because the job that I was going for, here we are doing TV. I went to school to learn how to talk and write,
Yeah.
and math was my least favorite thing ever from elementary through college, high school, and I even remember in college I was like, "What is he saying?"
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't drop the class, but it was I only needed, for my degree, I have a degree in journalism and telecommunications. I only had to take one math class. And so
Mm-hmm.
I just needed to slide by because I don't understand anything. And it wasn't that I just wanted to get out of there. I smile about it now because it was like I hated that and I enjoyed college. But I it was so frustrating because I was trying to understand it.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to understand it, one, because I needed to at least get a C so I get my credit and slide
That's right.
by.
That's right.
But it was incredibly frustrating for me. And so I didn't therefore enjoy it and I didn't want to be. I just wanted to get out. So how can and again where I go with this is
Yep.
I did have a lot of I went to like summer reading camps and stuff
Yeah.
and I had to do the stupid reading logs. I say stupid because
Oh,
they
hold on
forced
now.
you to read. And I did it and my mom sent me to all these different things. So it makes sense why I talk for a living
Mm-hmm.
because that's what I was pretty much immersed in.
Yeah.
But on your side, for math, if you've got somebody who like I knew what I wanted to do,
Mm-hmm.
but if you've got somebody who um, wants to do something involving math but doesn't understand math,
Yep.
how do you get beyond that? Because for me, it didn't matter. I just had to slide by. How do you
So
talk to the person who needs to understand it?
there are two things I think you have to consider. One, that we aren't building calculators. We're building thinkers, right? And what that means is when I look at math, I don't look at math as a singular subject. It's all connected for me. And I've always looked at school that way. Even when I was in school, when I was in elementary school, I looked at school that way. Like I can see how all of the things are connected, how
Mhm.
writing was connected to geometry and how geometry was connected to science and how it's all the same thing. It's all how the world works. That's what it is. Writing and reading is just communication. We need to communicate with each other to talk. Well, what are we going to communicate? Well, we need to communicate how the world works. So there are mathematical principles that explains like how these chairs are sitting up right now,
Mhm.
which is also physics,
Mhm.
right? So which is what materials are we going to use and what are the properties of the material of those materials and where does it come from? Well, that's a little bit of chemistry,
Mhm.
right? And so it's all connected. It's not one thing. So I think the first thing is like if we're building thinkers and we're building problem solvers, we have to understand that it is all connected. One of my favorite musical artists, John Coltrane. John Coltrane was a musical genius, right? A Love Supreme is one of the greatest albums of all time. John Coltrane was a musical and mathematical genius. He took the circle of fifths, which is what musicians use to figure out what keys and what chords sound good when you juxtapose them to each other, one after another, right? But he took that circle of fifths and he built a new one where he was like adding extra keys and chords in different places. Like if I have this microtonal movement, this is going to sound good too. It takes a mathematical mind to be able to do that. And that's John Coltrane, one of the greatest musicians of all time,
Mhm.
doing that. So I think that's the first thing. One, stop separating the subjects. Math is just as much a part of everything else as everything else is a part of math. The other thing is math takes training. And just like anything, right? So you are a communications expert. In the communications expert world, you had to do some things to become an expert. It's just some of it may have come to you naturally, and other parts of it may have been trained. You may have spent countless hours in the mirror understanding how your face looks when you communicate certain ideas. You may have communicated some idea hundreds of times before you got on stage and communicated it for the real time. Math is the same way. So if I'm going to be expected to run certain calculations, I'm not downplaying calculations and saying they're not important. They're important. That's not all we are though, right? And so yes, I may have to do calculations hundreds of times till I can eliminate a certain number of errors so I can be more effective in my work, right? I may have to practice solving problems I've never seen before so I can understand how to come up with new solutions to problems I haven't seen before. I may have to practice what my mindset is when I approach these problems because sometimes I might want to give up, and giving up is just not an option sometimes when you're the only one who can solve the problem. So how do I have the mental fortitude to solve this problem? And I think that's the thing that we are missing sometimes, and people kind of like they eliminate that aspect of math. They're just like, oh, I'm not going to train for math, but I'll train for basketball.
Mhm.
I'll train for baseball. I'll train for football. I'll train for communications, but training for math, and my theory around that is because they haven't experienced joy with math yet. And once you experience joy with math, then it gives you enough firepower to put in the training.
So I want to show everybody your website. We're going to take a commercial break here in a second, but as people are before we go to a break,
Yeah.
give them a chance to figure out because they've heard you talk
Yep.
now. Tell them how to navigate this website, get in contact with you so that
So
they can learn more.
yeah, I would say first, as you navigate, if you want to get involved with us and try to understand, there should be a space there that says newsletters. And as we talk about newsletters, one of the things I want to note is we are an intergenerational company. So I believe that parents have to be involved. So if you come to our math circles, the parents stay there. They don't go. They don't go
Mm.
grocery shopping. They stay there and they solve problems with their kids, or they talk with me about how their kids responded to certain problems. And I bring you to our newsletter section of our website because if you click on one of those, there's a section at the bottom of the newsletter that has all the way at the bottom that has activities that you could do with your children at home. And so right there, that's the game of 24. And so you can buy those card decks or you can find them online for free. And there's just a target number game. So you use the numbers and you try to come up with a strategy to use multiplication, addition, subtraction, division to turn those four numbers into the number 24, right? And it's kind of a problem solving game and a calculation game at the same time. And I play it with my kids just for fun, right? I used to play it with my students for fun. I was introduced to me by a teacher I worked with. Her name is Robin. And so we used to play it with our kids, Robin Schwartz. And so it's a great opportunity for parents to work with their kids. But like I said, we're intergenerational. So not just parents, we have grandparents coming in supporting our work. We have high school students who, because we mostly work with K through 8. So we also have high school students who come in and volunteer who have been in math competitions before. So our work is about the entire spectrum of the community participating and not just the parents or not just the youth. So but yeah, so I would direct parents to those newsletters. That's one of the first things I would direct parents to, so you can kind of see what we're about and what we talked about. Then we also have a store, so we have storybooks. We have other things that you can pay attention to on our website. But then lastly, go to our calendar because that's what you find out. That's when you find out about what we're having coming up next.
And the website is exponentiaprime.com. Exponentiaprime.com. We're going to take a quick commercial break because we've talked about what do you do with students who are interested in math but maybe can't get to it. But I'm going to hit you with something maybe you can think about during the commercial break, Patrick. How do you get somebody who's not interested in math to understand why you need to know the basics? We talk about the stock market. We talk about everything that is happening right now. We talk about this issue that student loans are suddenly about to be going to collection. So if you don't know math, now might be a good time to pick it up. More of Fox 59 tonight, coming up after this.